Mr. Handyish here. We've got a DeWalt planer to play with today. This is a 15 or 15 and a half inch model. Come on in here, camera lady. Let's make sure that they know what model we're actually going here. This is DeWalt DW734 planer, and it runs off a standard 110, 120 power. Need to be on at least a 15 amp breaker. I have mine on a 20 here in the garage. You got your load ramp on each side. You've got your hand crank to adjust up and down. You have your locking mechanism to lock it in place and then unlock if you're going to adjust the thickness. I've got it on my old Black & Decker stand here that folds down and stores really easy. But anyway, come around here and you can see that it actually comes with a little handy tool with storage right on the machine that you can make your adjustments as needed. Right up here, it actually shows you how much up and down it will raise it based on the how much turning you do. Around this way, you can see it's got on the top of this, it's going to show you what thickness you're adjusting to. And then right here, as you're running the boards through, you'll see this bounce up and down, telling you how much material it's actually taking off of your piece of lumber. So what I'm going to do, I have old stair treads from my sister's place, and you can see they've kind of got that work to them just a little bit here. I think that's called cupping. I'm not really a carpenter. I'm a carpenter-ish, right? So we'll run that through too. There are some staples. You got to really be careful to get all of your nails and screws and staples out of these old, if you're recycling lumber, you'll really mess up the knives. This model has it's double-edged knives, and there's 3 that rotate together. So hopefully that'll give me a little longer life. I looked at a model from Harbor Freight, and I chose this one. I think it was an extra $100, but sometimes I go with Harbor Freight brands, and sometimes I choose to spend a little more. In this case, it was because they had the extra knife, and I felt like, you know what, it'll probably last a little longer because of that. Real easy to swap them out too. I might show that to you in another video. Right now I'm going to take, this is a piece of oak, and it's got the live edge on there still, and if you come up closer, you should be able to see, those are chainsaw marks. So I milled this with a chainsaw without a guide. So this is, you can see it's not perfect, but I ran it through with a chainsaw. So I'll kick this on and run it through a few times. Way off, right? Come on, get it together, Mr. Handyish. Now remember, I'm not a professional at anything, so that includes remembering to get closer before you run it through. So I'm going to get it close, I'm going to back it off, and I can actually feel if I'm getting any resistance. I'm not really going to go a little more. And I'm not going to measure all the way along here, so I'm going to pass it through. I might not hit it a bit, but I'm going to pass it through because I don't want to bog the machine down. Getting a little bit, barely. I'm not pulling at all. can already see right here. Feel that, camera lady. Put your hand on there and feel that. Look how smooth that is. All right, so you can see where it transitions, obviously, from where it's moved and where it's got some chainsaw marks left on it. And depending on what kind of look you're going for, you might choose to leave some of this. Now, what it's done though is it's leveled this side off. So if I might want to leave some marks on this, flip it over, and go deeper with this. But if you look close, this is where I've got my deeper grooves. So I'm going to want to take more material off this side, question mark. You got to think about what kind of thickness you want your final product. So if I don't want to take too much more off, this is the side I'll just do a couple passes then to leave the dramatic look of the chainsaw marks, and then I'll come back to this side to clean it up. So let's run this one through a couple, get it flattened out a little bit, and then I'll actually make this my pretty side. And if I was smart, you know, maybe a little more planning, but the chainsaw does a lot of the deciding for me. Close. We're almost done anyway. working with real wood from, you know, this was a dead oak tree down on my property. You know, you find things like this. Come on in close. These were little beetle larvae having a little snack. And, you know, depending on what you're trying to do, you might want something like that to add some character to your piece. And then what you can do is go behind, because you don't know if there might be some still in there. So you might go behind this and apply a thin coat of Boracare or some other product that will treat it. My sister used Boracare for the first time. When we did that, it was interesting. You could see we were doing floor joists, and the larvae just came out, and they were dying and falling out of her floor joists. It was really kind of neat. But, you know, depending on what you're doing, you might pull some of this off on purpose. You might try to keep it on there. You might put an epoxy. You might just do a polyurethane. But this is so smooth, you might not even want to get it any finer with sandpaper. This is so nice. So this DeWalt piece of warped old stair tread, and this looks like pine, maybe? I'm not an arborist, right? And I'm hoping, I think I got all the staples out of this thing. I'd hate to mess up my knives on here. Let's just see what we can do with it. It might be about the right thickness. Let's see. Oh! And this is the side that had, this was the top of the step. Well, that underside looks nice.
It does.
You didn't have the extra staple holes for the carpet that apparently was in it at one time. Did you know there was carpet in it?
No.
So we found that there was some foam, carpet pad foam under one of the staples that I pulled. So yeah, there was carpet on this old step at one time.
Yeah, as well as tar.
Yeah.
The tar treads.
So, that probably, risks gumming up the knives or whatever. Go ahead and pause. I'm going to go get a rasp.
Live.
Typical me. Quick look. I should have my rasp file up with the rest of them on the magnet strip. I've got a regular bastard file half around here. We'll see how quick this could take it off. Not nearly as fast. Come closer. Not nearly as fast as if we had a rasp file. You really need a rasp on this to take it off faster. It's so smooth, and this, this is a bastard file, but it's actually pretty fine in my opinion. Then you got old caulk here. You can get that off of there with this. And you can see actually, even with this less aggressive file, I really wish I knew where my rasp file was. But even with this less aggressive one, you can see kind of how quickly you can get through this old varnish. It gets gummed up. Of course, you could use a sander. You could use a planer.
Yeah, I've got some 60 grit that I'll take to it.
But you can see even with the file. I tell you what, I recommend you see if we can find our rasp file. It's just a more aggressive file that'll cut through that real fast. But you can see it'll get it down to the same as the rest. But
that's
yeah,
pretty.
There's your new step shelf. And in the first video, I showed you how it was cupped. It had warped in, and that planer took it out, and we only lost maybe an eighth or maybe just a little bit more of an inch there. So, a good piece of shelving, and